I am really unhappy with the Royale High Diamond Shop rework, and I want to clarify before I get started in the keyboard warriors come in the comments, this isn't a hateful video, but more so a video that I hope will shed light to Royale High on how the community experiences the game, because it's different to be someone in a position of power that owns a game and decides how the economy works and with a flip of a switch can change everything, whereas you're a consumer who's been working for years to try and trade for items, and the prices of items just keep getting higher and higher, whereas the prices for diamonds keep getting higher as well without the same return of the diamond amounts. Now, if you guys don't exactly know what I'm talking about, with Royale High's economic rework, they decided they're going to be fixing, quote unquote, fixing the diamond shop, which the diamond shop has been something that has notoriously been, in my opinion, perceived as not being that great. The rates in there aren't very good, especially when you compare it to third-party sellers, which I'm not telling you to, buy anything from other sellers or anything like that, but when you compare the rates that Royale High sells diamonds for versus people on Facebook Marketplace, and although they could be scammers, the rates are so vastly different because the community understands that, in their opinion, the diamonds in the shop are overpriced, okay? And that's the community perception. That's what I've seen widely shared among consumers. I'm just a messenger here, okay? But regardless, basically, as part of their economic rework, Royale High decided they're going to be fixing the diamond shop, where basically you can purchase diamonds in Royale High for Robux. Now, the issue was I was expecting a pretty significant increase. However, they only increased the diamond shop by 10.6%, which meant that you had to spend 10.6%. Well, you could spend the same amount, but you're getting 10.6% more diamonds, if that makes sense. Basically, in response to inflation and just the way that obviously rates have changed. Now, something that's important to note here that I do think is really crucial is that the rates for Robux have changed globally. If you guys don't know, Roblox introduced a sort of global pricing where if you live in Canada, the UK, or another country, to purchase 100 Robux is actually a different price for you than it would be for someone in the United States based on the value of your currency, which this has kind of messed up the way that people perceive stuff in Royale High and how much things cost, because people are obviously fighting with each other because they don't all have the same currency. So for the sake of the video, we're going to be using USD. So just to clarify that right off the bat, we're using USD. Now, I want to show you guys that some items in Royale High cost double the US average monthly salary for people under the age of 25, which is shocking to me, but obviously something that needs to be addressed. Now, the first step to finding this whole solution, and I am going to be using my iPad to hopefully illustrate this clearly to you guys, is that we have to find the value for a diamond in USD. And the way that we're going to do this is by starting by finding how much one Robux is worth in USD. Now, something I do want to clarify is that same with Robux and diamonds in the Royale High shop, the more you buy, the cheaper it is in the sense. Basically, you get kind of like a little discount for ordering a little extra, right? And that's to incentivize bigger orders, and a lot of games do that. And so for that reason, I took the average values in Robux for purchasing diamonds, and I basically just averaged it, and that's how I got these values. So taking all that into account, I averaged it, and this was the rates I came up with. Now, for 1 Robux to USD, 1 Robux, based on my calculations, is equal to 0.0125 USD. Now, if we were to go ahead and figure out the price for a diamond, how much one diamond is worth in USD, based on my calculations, one diamond is equal to 0.0004046 USD, which I know sounds complicated, but we're going to be using this specific number here and multiplying that number by the amount of diamonds that items are worth to basically come up with very quick calculations on how much items technically cost if you were to purchase the diamonds to get the items in Royale High, okay? So with that in mind, let's take just the Royale High shop as an example, okay? If you were to purchase 300 diamonds, that technically costs you about 31 cents USD if we're using the Robux conversion rate that I came up with earlier. Now, if you were to purchase 3,000 diamonds, that costs you about $2.50 USD. Keep in mind, although you would have to purchase a Robux bundle to actually be able to do this, and they don't just sell, 200 Robux, I'm just going off of how much it's actually worth, okay? Now, if you were to, let's jump and say you were buying 50,000 diamonds, that would cost you $25 US. For 170,000 diamonds, it would cost you $62.50 USD, and for 290,000 diamonds, it would cost you about $100 USD. Now, that's basically the rates that we have. Now, if you know anything about Royale High, you probably know that 290,000 diamonds is not very much money in the game. Based on how much stuff costs, that's actually quite a small amount, which is shocking to say because it's worth $100 USD, but in relation to how much things cost and trading values and stuff like that, that is actually a very small amount to pay, in my opinion, for $100 US, which would take someone so many hours to accumulate in a regular job or a part-time job, right? Now, if you were to actually take higher value items, this is where it gets really crazy, okay? An example could be the Valentine's Day 2021 Halo. Now, this Halo, based on community values, which I want to clarify, Royale High's not selling this Halo, but it is important to acknowledge how the community values things. The Valentine's Day 2021 Halo is worth 2.65 million diamonds, give or take. That's the average community value based on trade restats, and based on the average trades that I've seen recently, that seems to check out. Now, if we're using our conversion rate from diamonds to USD, that means that we take 2,650,000 diamonds and we times it by our 0.00040046 USD, we get $1,072.19 USD, which for an in-game pixelated Halo, I'm shocked. To even think that I owned that Halo at one point is kind of shocking to think. Like, that was worth like half a paycheck. You know what I mean? Like, technically it is. Like, that's shocking to me. Now, the next thing, too, is we're going to look at the Dark Fairy Halo, and we're getting higher in value here. The Dark Fairy Halo averages for about 6.9 million diamonds, and the USD value is $2,791.74 USD. That's insane. Now, if we go even further, the Moonlit Meadow Halo. This Halo's value is 12.2 million based on recent tradery trades, and the USD value based on my calculations would be $4,936.12 USD. And finally, let's take Divine Adoration, which is valued at 14.8 million diamonds. That would cost you $5,988.08 USD. Now, to put that into perspective, based on US taxpayer data that I went ahead and got from the US government's website, it's publicly available, average across all states, which I want to clarify, there's a difference between average and median. Basically, average is taking all of the different amounts that people make in that age group and then dividing it by the amount of people, and that's your average, okay? However, a median is when you take like what is the most popular, amount that people make. So averaging would take into account people who are multimillionaires. So keep that in mind, and that's why these numbers are higher than they technically probably are. But for average under 25 in the United States across all states, which you also have to keep in mind that the cost of living and, payouts and stuff like that for every state are very different. So this is very, very vague numbers here. That across all states, people under the age of 25 make an average of $3,400 USD a month. And that is higher on the end, obviously, because there's people who make a lot of money, people who don't make any money, but typically people who are drastic outliers or people who make millions of dollars will sway these kind of numbers. Now, if we're going to take people between the ages of 16 and 19 in the USA, the average monthly salary according to US tax statistics, is $2,700 USD, which I don't know a single 16-year-old that's making that much money. Maybe, I don't know, you're doing a good job. But regardless, I would err more on the side that people who are younger, especially if you're working a part-time job, maybe you're making $1,000 a month, maybe $1,500 a month. Obviously, it really varies by your state and, your quality of living and how much stuff costs to live. And so obviously, some states would have higher amounts that you're making because housing costs more, stuff like that. But regardless, to see that the average income for people under 25 is $3,400 in the United States, and this Divine Adoration Halo, this pixelated Roblox Halo, goes for $5,988.08 USD if you were to purchase the diamonds to trade for it, is insane to me. And I do obviously have to clarify that at the end of the day, nobody's forcing you to purchase diamonds from Royale High. But at the same time, you have to think that when a game is changing their farming systems and maybe things aren't as easy as it used to be, it really does, encourage and incentivize players to purchase diamonds with their Robux, right? Because I think we all learned from the 2x XP event that we really want farming to be fixed, and that was some of the highest numbers, in my opinion, that Royale High had seen in quite a while there because of how exciting the event was, and players really wanted to be able to farm effectively. They want to make the most of their time because for everybody, regardless of your age, your time is worth something. Your time is worth money. You don't want to just waste your time playing a mindless game to basically get no reward. That's not going to make you feel very happy. It's not going to, give you that feedback loop where you feel some sort of achievement from playing a game. And so when a game like Royale High kind of tweaks the farming systems routinely and makes these big changes, like you're not getting diamonds for doing specific tasks at that very moment and you're getting XP instead, or maybe the XP amounts that you get per task are changed, which, before y'all call me a liar, just search it up on Twitter. There's so many people that have screenshots from a couple months ago versus now for the exact same task, and the XP amount is different. The XP amount seems to be a lot higher for certain things. And so with Royale High tweaking stuff, I'm not saying that it was nerfed, but with them tweaking things, it does kind of make it so players are more incentivized to spend money, especially with them revamping the diamond shop to make it more fair in their eyes. And obviously, I do want to clarify that they used an economist to come up with these rates, so obviously they're doing something right in the sense of what makes sense for the game economically and for profitability and stuff like that. However, as a player's perspective, and as someone who plays Royale High and has, done farming and who owns several high value items, I feel like Royale High sometimes doesn't understand the player's perception or the player's experience of playing the game. And I really hope that maybe eventually Royale High will have some sort of like community council or something like that, which I'm not talking about the badge holders, because no offense, a lot of the badge holders are very uptight, or they get gifted stuff from people. There are some that are obviously very deserving of their items because they traded fairly, but I find a lot of badge holders are very quick to defend Royale High or say nothing's wrong with the game, guys, it's all fun, like everything's great. And those are the same people who are getting gifted multi-million diamond, you know, value halos in like a live stream and stuff like that. Like, it's not the same as the average player who doesn't get any special treatment from the community, and someone who is trading every single day, and someone who wishes at the fountain every single chance that they get, and they still aren't winning a halo. And so their only option is to farm for stuff. The farming keeps getting tweaked, and they feel like they aren't achieving, you know, a fair amount from farming, so that leads them to then purchase stuff. And I just feel like sometimes when games tweak things or they add in features for you to purchase in-game currency, they don't always understand the user journey or the way that users interact with their game. And I really hope that maybe in the future Royale High can have some sort of a community platform where regular players, not influencers, not people who make Royale High videos, but regular players can give feedback, or they can maybe have in-game surveys for players to give their feedback on stuff, and they can have like on a scale from 1 to 5, how do you feel about this? But I do feel like obviously that is something that would do a lot of, like, would cost a lot of work, it would take a lot of effort. But at the same time, I think we have to identify, for Royale High, does the community matter enough for them to put in that effort? And I think that's what's really going to determine this here, is that if they cared enough about it, they would do it. And that's the truth, right? If the game wants to see their game succeed and they want players to be happy and they want their community to feel heard, they would implement things like in-game surveys, like the recent poll that we saw, to gauge how players are feeling about the game and to make changes as needed, right? And not to say that you always have to listen to the community, because some people might be like, oh, give everyone a halo, or oh, give everyone 1,000,000 diamonds. That's obviously not feasible, but at the same time, I feel like the rates, specifically in the diamond shop, just do not accurately reflect the amount that certain items cost in the game and the amount that certain sets are costing and stuff like that. Like, to think that I have to spend like $100 to buy a set in Royale High, depending on obviously how much the set costs, and every set varies in price, but that's just crazy to me. It's just crazy, especially when you can get banned really easily, it sounds like, from doing commissions. I actually messaged somebody on Twitter the other day, asked if I can make a video about their situation, because they're a Royale High artist who got banned for just accepting compensation for their art through the trading hub. It's been all this stuff, but regardless, I feel like Royale High really does need some community feedback in a place that is moderated and safe. And I feel like an in-game poll with like little bubbles with like how strongly do you agree or disagree would be a good way to get that feedback in a very respectful way, a constructive way, in a way that can be easily tracked and monitored without, you know, someone having to respond to stuff, in a way that's safe for everybody, where everybody can feel heard and understood. But regardless, I want to know your guys' thoughts down below. Did you know that certain items in Royale High, based on the community value and what players are trading for them, cost more than double the average US earner under 25 monthly salary? That's shocking. That's crazy to me. But regardless, let me know your thoughts on this down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!